And the coronavirus crisis continues in Victoria to deepen. More than 3,000 residents have been locked down in public housing towers in Melbourne. Today, Premier Dan Andrews closed the borders after announcing there had been 127 new cases overnight. Here's part of that press conference.
From 11:59pm midnight tomorrow night, the border with New South Wales will be closed. That closure will be enforced on the New South Wales side so as not to be a drain on resources that are very much focused on fighting the virus right now across our state.
The outbreak has led to extraordinary decisions being made by the Andrews government, with apartment blocks being put in total lockdown, as Nine News reports.
A tongue-in-cheek call for help from those struggling to be heard, locked inside with zero notice.
For me to sit here and say people in the community are not upset about this, I'll be lying to you.
Ahmed Dini is one of the 3,000 who woke this morning to find their public housing buildings surrounded by police.
They're testing us. They lock us in.
24 hours after being told no one could leave and no one can enter, some we spoke to still hadn't heard from the health department or received food.
Manatel is doing the trick for me at this moment, but I'm really concerned for parents, single mother parents as well in the community. There's a lot of trauma that's going to come out of this in the next couple of days.
Food bank trucks arrived early at Flemington, backed up by 3,000 meals cooked by Fair Share chefs.
We've got lots of wet meals, casseroles, roast chicken and vegetables.
But boxes to keep kids entertained bizarrely included an air freshener, while residents were less than impressed by supplies that contained Wheat Bix but no milk. Mum Melissa Whelan lives with her autistic son and doesn't have access to her anxiety medication.
I could get a family member to pick it up, but from what I understand, they won't be able to bring it to me.
Nor are Mel's grandmother's carers, who feed her 3 times a day.
She can't prepare them, she can't do them, she needs something microwavable or hot when it comes.
Methadone and alcohol support is being organised for residents who need it, but going outside for some fresh air is too dangerous for now, according to the Premier.
These towers are being treated in a public health response sense, no different to an aged care facility.
For me, really speaking, and to be 1 second of a prison means 100 years.
Shaky first steps in Australia's harshest lockdown yet. Not enough to deter our most vulnerable residents determined to beat the virus.
Our parents have survived war, they have survived civil wars and stuff like that. We can survive 5 days. We will come out stronger as a community, but we want the rest of the country to be with us.
That report from Nine News in Melbourne. Look, after 500 police are stationed across the towers to make sure no one gets in or out. Robbo, we understand drastic measures need to be taken, of course, to fight the virus. Do you think this would happen in a wealthy suburb?
Absolutely not. It just wouldn't happen. This is just another kind of, a war on the poor, really. We understand there are a lot of people who are disadvantaged there. There are a lot of people who need, greater support, but the support they're being given is just more police officers. It's outrageous, really. I understand that they need to be locked up, in any suburb. That's fine. I totally get that. But the thing I worry about is if this was in a wealthy suburb, we wouldn't see, 2 police officers at everyone's gate. If the neurosurgeon had to go off and get a bottle of Grange, that would be all right. I really don't think that we'd see the same kind of things with more powerful people in our community. I think it's a really sad indictment of what's happening.
Robbo, what do we do here? There have been 127 cases overnight. You've got no proof.
All I'm saying is that if you're going to do it to poor people and lock them up, you know what we saw? Remember, it was the Aspen case. Remember, so a lot of people came back to Toorak who had gone on their little Aspen trips, and they were not social distancing. They weren't putting themselves in quarantine, and there was no repercussions for that.
How long ago was that?
But these people who... It doesn't matter when it was. It was all about stopping the virus.
We're dealing with 127 cases overnight. It's now past the point of politeness and asking people to do the right thing. We are now at the point where if you don't do the right thing, the police have to make you do the right thing.
Do you think that they would be outside houses in very wealthy suburbs? You actually believe that?
Yes, they're doing random tests, aren't they?
No. In these towers, there are 500 police officers on every floor. Do you actually believe that in a really wealthy suburb...
Thing, Robbo. People are
the
not
wealthy people aren't doing it either.
I agree, but if they're not doing the right thing, go to their houses and do this. Suburbs are being shut down.
Though, in your heart? In your
Yes.
heart, do you think that in rich suburbs it would happen this? It didn't. It didn't happen.
Robbo,
anyway,
can
okay.
I just quickly say, Robbo, do you have your victim complex on speed dial? Because every single time we come to this war on the poor, you're so quick to say, oh, they wouldn't do that to the rich. Of course they would do that to the rich. If these outbreaks and the statistics that were readily available for the government were there, and we've got commission houses in Richmond, we've got them in Toorak, there's places around here that have the same outbreak and the knowledge and the know-how to shut that down. It's basically a ship on land. So when you think about those cruise ships and you know that those are contaminated, then you're going to shut it down, right, regardless as to whether it's in St Albans or whether it's in Toorak. So I refuse to hear a war on the poor. Give me strength.
I don't think, though, like I said, Rob, you know what? I don't think it matters what time it was, but we did see that when there was the initial breakout of the pandemic, people were coming back from Aspen. It was a very, very big story, and they weren't doing the right thing. It happened on the north shore of Sydney. It happened in the wealthy suburbs of Melbourne. That's fact. They will not held up to the same kind of rigmarole. They should have been, of course, but they weren't. But they weren't.
We've come a long way since there.
Yeah, we really
We've
have
come a
Robbo.
long way, and we've learnt a lot of information. Digging up something about something that happened at the start of the movie is not as relevant as what happens at the end of the movie or halfway between. You know, look, I don't want to have this as like some sort of a personal attack, because it's certainly not. But when it comes down to it, what happened with those people coming back into Stonington, the council that they came back into after being in Aspen, was a huge mistake. And we need to own those mistakes, and we need to quarantine those mistakes. And what we learned from that previous situation, regardless of wealth or stature or any other piece of information, was that we just need to quarantine these places down. And people don't like being quarantined. People don't like being told what to do. So the precautions are higher. We're making more effort. So there's probably more police. But when you talk about these little houses downstairs that are there, they're just simply there for the testing. That's all we're going to do. We want to make sure these people get well, and we want to make sure that they are quarantined correctly before those doors are opened. And it's as simple as that.
I was going to give you the floor, Robbo. I would just like to add to that whatever has happened in the past, there were 127 cases of COVID-19 in the last 24 hours. It needs to stop. We've seen people trying to change their address in Melbourne because they didn't want to be in one of the hotspots. They've been using family and friends' addresses, and the police and the government are coming down on that. People just don't give a shit about the greater good. And I don't care. I hate totalitarianism. But the fact is, if people aren't going to do the right thing when lives are at risk, then they need to be forced to do that. This is ridiculous. I don't care of your ethnicity. I don't care of how much money you've got. This is a crisis. And if you don't do the right thing, you have to be held accountable. Simple as that.
It's the Ben, Rob and Robbo, Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. Ben, Rob and Robbo Show.